Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Ellen. So today we're taking a hike in the mountains. Yep, we're going way in the mountains. I go over this tutorial step by step. I break it down for you, how I go about painting something like this. I give you a reference photo also, so it doesn't become too overwhelming for you. Let me know what your favorite activity is to do in the summer. I know people like to go hiking, camping, all that fun stuff. I love to go to the beach, personally. Also, check out my Patreon. I have ad-free videos, traceables, exclusive tutorials, and a live stream on top tier. It's just a place people go and support my channel, which I appreciate so much. We also added a Facebook group where I do weekly challenges and monthly giveaways. And you can find a link for this in the description on all my tutorials, actually. So, without further ado, let's get painting this hiking scene. All right, let's go over supplies. I'm using Fabriano 100% cotton cold press. This is the bright white pad. This is a block. Excuse me, not pad. I'm using my Princeton 12 acrylic brush and my 8 long round brush. And I might dabble in using a 12 Neptune series here and there, get some really loose greenery. I give you the photo link of the photo that I'm going by here on Unsplash. And yeah, so I drew this, the outline of the photo here, and I didn't tape it down because I intend on actually having some greenery come out of the square. So some parts will be in the square, the rectangle, and some parts will be out of it. Zoom in back this way. So for the sky, it's just simple, like maybe cobalt blue, could be ultramarine blue, whatever color works for you. Either or, I say, works great. I'm just going to take my Princeton 12 Aqua Elite and check it out. So it can be cobalt blue. You can change the sky if you want to, but I'm just going to water down the ultramarine blue. Really, the consistency is like super, super, super light tea. And I'm just going to wash that in. You can make it a little bit lighter if you want, but I think the color is almost perfect for here. I'm going to wash that in. And it can leave where the cloud is going to be, or I can fill it in and kind of remove it where the cloud's going to be. Either or works fine. And don't worry about this whole area because the trees are deep green and we'll go over that. So I'm just going to kind of fill this in, and then I'll remove. Like I said, you can keep a white area, but I always find it better, just personally for me, is to remove it. Just to fill in the wash first. So I'm taking that paint. It's really kind of a loose, again, blue. Washing this in with this brush. Now there's two ways you can remove the paint for clouds. You can use your brush to do that. I'll clean up my brush. Use it like a mop, so you can kind of twist and then tap it back on a towel that you have. I'm going right in over where my lines are, see? And the way I like to do this, it looks a little more natural when the paint goes back into the paper. So it doesn't look like this fake white. You can take a piece of paper towel and scrunch it up and also remove the paint that way. I don't find it as natural as removing it the other way. Just a personal preference. So you can do the little clouds here. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect. And then you can get those little teeny little lines by going in here, removing those, tapping back. Again, it's not supposed to be super perfect. Close enough, that's all that matters. It looks great either way. Okay? I'm just going to let that all dry. So we're going to mix up some greens while we're letting that dry. And this color here would be mostly beige browns, and then get some greens kind of happening in here. So I'm just going to draw off where the beige ends. It's kind of like a funky, I don't even know where this was. I'm sure on the picture will tell you where it is. But we'll mix up greens anyway. Here's the cadmium yellow deep, mixing with Prussian blue. Get a nice deep green. Adding more blue. I always like to add a tinge of burnt umber just to tone it down a little bit more. It's preference. If you really want a bright, super bright green, mix the cadmium yellow deep with peacock blue because it's like a turquoise and you get that bright chartreusey green. I'm adding more turquoise peacock color, kind of get a more medium. You see that bright greens on the hillside and over here in the trail area. And then we have our rock formation, which is basically beigey brown gray. So I've got burnt umber mixing some Paynes gray, and I can take some burnt umber itself and even some yellow ochre. All those colors work great. Kind of mixing them all together here. So for the rock formations, it's very much this yellow ochre kind of color, and then like the little shadow area could be like blue, purple. So I'm just going to kind of fill this part in first. The beigey kind of color here. Get that all in. Again, don't worry about this because the greens will cover it. And even going down in here. Then we start to bleed in a little bit of this light green kind of happening on the mountain formation. And even down in here. It's like a little land mass. It's hard to see all of it. And again, I'm picking up some more of that beigey color. Filling it in. And just filling that in. We'll have to wait till this dries to go in and add some more detail to it. A little bit of the dark green kind of happening. A little bit of line here. I'm just tapping it a little bit. So if you want to get the paint really thick, or it's barely movable, it might help you to just see, so this is all just kind of bleeding, but if you want to just tap it a little bit in there, it won't bleed as much. And I'll put the ultramarine blue here. Mix it with some of that green. There's like a little line here. You just kind of play around with adding that little dark green line going across. So we have to kind of wait till all of this dries. Meanwhile, we can still use that same beige kind of tones, yellow ochre, beigey, gray kind of tones for the path. Just going to fill that in lightly. And there's a little person there. I'm going to put that person in. She's wearing shorts, but it's hard to tell. So I'm just filling in this color here. It's a pathway. Like a beigey brown. Mine's a little more yellowish. You can make it redder. It seems like it's more red in the picture, but it's up to you. I might grab more of that burnt umber, which is kind of have a red tone to it. You can add a little burnt sienna or something in there. Kind of play around with that. Bleeding in some color here. And grab a little burnt sienna. Put some over here. Just tippy tapping some color. Still kind of keep on light. That's the little walkway. And remove some color. I feel like it got a little too dark. And kind of twist it because it has a kind of a texture to it. It does look a little more red. I might add some cadmium red deep. Excuse me, light. So that color I have. Orangey red. Fill that in. All right, now we can start to play in this area, even though we haven't got the deep greens back there yet, because it's still kind of wet. We can just kind of play around with adding this light green in. And here you're just kind of loosely painting it. So you're just kind of moving the brush like so. Doesn't have to have these perfect formations. You squint your eye where you see the light green, and then you can kind of bleed in a little couple of dark ones, and even medium color tones, kind of in here. This is just supposed to be a loose, fun painting. Don't get so stuck on like if the color tones are perfect or not, matching the painting. I mean the picture. And here I'm just kind of wiggling the brush. Right, and mostly in here is that light color. Add a little more yellow. Get even lighter. Just wheeling. Get the feeling of that really bright green summertime, lush green. Same thing down here. It's a lush, bright green happening. You want to just kind of wash it in like this. Go right ahead. This is all going to be much darker. And here's just a combination of all kinds of greens. And so if you want to start off just putting in the light color first. There's a couple of like grasses and brush kind of happening. You can grab some burnt umber with the tip of your brush. Going like this. Remember, it doesn't have to be perfect. We're just getting the feel of it. Adding in medium kind of green here. It's a little teeny, hard to see little teeny yellow flowers, but basically just tapping in some other kind of greens as it's drying. Just like that. You don't have to have this, like I said a million times, you don't have to be so perfect with it. Getting a little bit medium green here, adding in some burnt umber. So get some medium tones of green. You see, just kind of washing that in there. And here I decided to pull out some little grasses that you see coming off the page. Like I said, and grab some deeper ones. Kind of bleeding those in between the leaves. What you see here. It's just a combination of all of it. Get that light green in there. Go back in here. Just kind of make my little taps like you see me doing here. Kind of blending in that lush greenery. There's some brown brush areas. Kind of fill that in there. If you want to switch to a smaller brush, feel free. And if you squint your eye, you can see the mass is getting a little bit darker over in here. So I'm just going to wiggle my brush, get some darker tones happening, and then go back in and grab some more medium tones and brighter tones. It's a constant little dance. And again, going back over in here, just add another value of this medium green kind of coming out here. And then there's another in-between green. There's 3 or 4 different values of greens happening. A lot of lush greenery happening. And then we have these pine trees in the distance that are much more deep and darker colored. So with the variation of the different greens kind of happening. And they get darker towards as she's walking towards that little area back here. Try not to hurt her head. Cutting that in there. A little lush green. And I'll take my Princeton number 8 long round. And I'll do some grabbing the medium greens. As you see here. If you want to do little grasses. They're kind of coming on the road a little bit. That's what the skinnier brush is for. Don't have to fuss with it too much though. Again, I'm just going to go back in here. I can even use this brush. Hold it on its side. Get the vegetation going all in here. I'm playing around with that. I would put some of this light green going in between the trees. You kind of see it barely. And then we can go in and add all that deep dark color. You just barely see it. There's that field back here. There's a lot of green happening here. So now this is dry, that brown area. You can make like a bluish, I can use the ultramarine blue, mixed with some burnt umber. Maybe a little more blue. It comes out like kind of like a nice bluish gray. And I'll water it down. And the face of these rocks, You see like that bluish kind of tone? You just kind of follow where that funky little rock shadow is, going up, and then a few more kind of going out like this. And also on the rock formations, you can get them a little bit deeper, darker. It's just one note right now with color, but there's like little lines. Kind of add some texture to that. Taking your brush, going sideways. You could even roll your brush around a little bit. Dry brush it. Get that texture happening on the rocks. And then there's some texture happening here. Just kind of roll your brush around a little bit. And then you can go back and use that shadow. There's more shadow in here. And that deep green kind of line that was happening back here. Just take your time with that, with the shadows, with the blue. Wherever you see, you just kind of squint your eyes and see where the blue is happening, blue, gray. And you kind of put that shadow in on the face of the rock. See him slowly just kind of adding that, holding my brush like this, doing a couple little lines too. Boom. It's not perfect, but you get the idea. Right? Down around here, you can kind of see there's some trees. And to me, it just looks like a bunch of little pokey lines going up. But that's in the back, way back there. And then you grab your greens. They're kind of poking too, up and over in here. These are little teeny details, but they kind of add up. You grab your little greens and kind of push them around a little bit here, poking in here. Okay, now we're going to start to end up playing with the deep green trees. So I've started to mix up some color here. What I want you to do first is just to get some of that medium green in. You can see some of the medium green trees kind of happening in here, in the middle. And we can kind of like push this paint all the way up into the section here. And then we're going to do the dark green on top of that. Because even if it shows through, it's filled that white area. It's kind of hard to do it later. So I know this may seem like, why are you doing that when you're going to put dark green over it? It's just a rhyme and reason to it all. I'm just sticking some nice greenery here. Just going to fill that all in. Now you could have done that earlier too, but I like to do things sometimes in sections. Get that medium green kind of happening. Just fill it in. Okay, we don't have to worry about the rest of that. And there's that little field out here. And a little deeper greens back here. And for way back. We can play with putting the deep green all the way up here. It's almost like greenish black. So I took that deep green that I mixed up. I can add a little bit of Payne's gray. Not too much. It's very, very dark. A little brown. Really, really deep green. You see that branch coming down here. And you can just kind of wiggle your brush to create those little pine. I don't know if they call it pine, but what kind of pine tree it is. Pulling it down and just kind of wiggling that. I'm not going to have this part go off the page. You could have it go off the page, but see, I'm just wiggling my number 8 long round. Oops. So sorry. You got it out of frame. So I put the line down here. You kind of vision, like you see in the photograph, of the one that's kind of, the photograph is cutting off the big tree up top. While these are drying, I'm doing this and just kind of like wiggling in those tree needles with that deep dark green that I mixed up. Some like black green. With a little blue and there's some nice little skinny branches coming off that. And pine needles. You can get super detailed if you want to. It's up to you. I'm going in here and adding those ones. All right, now I can start to play. It's still a little damp, so I'm gonna wait till this dries and start to play with adding the tall little pine trees that we put in. In the meantime, while it's drying, you can kind of go in here and kind of play around with your foliage again, adding in some deeper color, even that darker tone in some areas. Getting all that in there, the grasses. See, I'm just kind of wiggling back and forth. You can even have it go like crisscross over this way. And we can add a shadow with a walkway with just like a little burnt sienna. I'm taking a little burnt sienna. I'm adding actually a little ultramarine blue, just a tippy tap about it. A little teeny bit of ultramarine blue with my burnt sienna. And we'll have a nice color for the shadow. And put some over in here. It's a little dark right now because the walkway got really light. So a couple of things. You can dry your brush off and just kind of hold it on its side to get that rustic walkway. The tooth of the paper will really help go a long way with that. I'm even adding in some more ultramarine blue under here for the shadows and under here. See the shadows now. And back over in here. It really helps. The blue is really great for a shadow color. And I'm just going to go like this on the side to get that rustic gravel look. You can hear that dry brush. So it's just minimal paint, dry. And that's all you do. I'm going to go fix in the area here behind her. And there you go. All right, when that's all done, you can start to lay down some of your pine trees. It's all dried up. You get this tall one kind of happening here. I'll just put the tree trunk in first. And another one, just go where all the tree trunks. Go down here. Where are you going to put those tall tree trunks? If they're not perfect, don't worry about it. See where they all go like this, pointy. So just putting the brown area in first of the tree. And then we can build from there, like where the foliage goes. These ones you can't even actually see the tree trunks, but it's helpful just to put it in. Like here, I'm going to just wash in some like the grayish brown here. This one you can kind of see in the picture. Like again, it's just a interpretation. You don't have to be perfect and precise. Just going in, sticking the tree in. And you won't be able to see it when you put all the foliage in anyway. Just imagine that it's way up here. Okay, so a couple ways. I'm not going to show you every single tree, but you get the idea. So take the tree that's kind of like right here. You can see the points. I'm just tapping, and then you're just going to tippy tap back and forth. So let me show you closely. This is what you do with the trees. So see this brush? I'm kind of like tapping the line. I do the line and kind of tap next to it. You see those loose taps? That's how you get that tree. Now some of them might be a little bit tighter. This one next to it seems to have tighter foliage. So you just do little closer taps. But see, I'm going to move them back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Like that. Back and forth. And see why that's helpful to have that green in the background now? Because if you didn't have that, you'd have white. And you might have a little situation where you didn't want that white. See, I'm going back and forth. Now this takes time, and your greens can vary. You can do some variations on the greens. So you have like one color that's maybe a little bit darker. This one's going a little bit darker. You see these ones up here. They kind of look like cypress trees in a way, but they're actually not. And see the back and forth. Right in here. So do this to all those trees. Make a variety of the color tones of the green. Don't make them all the same green tone. Maybe some have a little more brown in them, a little bit lighter, but they are generally darker. See, and you can get the paint a little looser if you want. Mine's kind of really thick, like consistency of butter in a way, just to make it stay darker. But you can get it looser. See, I'm going a little looser now. And just fill in these other ones behind it. And this is how you do all those green trees. Now as they get close together, you kind of mush them a little bit. And then there's that medium kind of trees in the background, different color tone. Like I said, variation of color tone. There's some of these green ones back here. Just a little bit later than the dark ones, obviously. And that's what you're going to do up and down. So rather than me showing every single tree, you get what I'm saying. Right? Do that to these trees, and then we'll go over to the big trees. So with this last bit of trees, you can kind of do the same kind of dance out here. It's kind of bushy. You can sit here and do this like one-liner with this paintbrush. It kind of make it crazy, but
here I'm just going through how I did my little trees.
But if you wanted to kind of peek out of the other side,
same way I showed you,
here,
back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. It takes time,
worth your while to kind of
but
just
you
push
can
it
get it
around
done
like this.
just like this.
So you can
put some music on,
like this
relax,
outside.
sit back, and play with your paints.
And it does go down. See why we have the green back here? It's going to get darker in here. This color kind of poking out the greenery, because we do have some of this one coming out this way. So it's kind of swooping in and out. Just kind of moving the brush around like this, poking it out. Swoop, swoop, the little branches, as you can see in the picture. Don't get so bogged down if they have to be perfect. You know, evergreen coming out of there. So I'm going over the tree here. I might mush it around. Let's see how I'm just going to go back and forth. And I'll keep filling it in too. You can make yourself crazy doing this, this tree. I don't know if there's a faster way to do it. I mean, it's just kind of like going in and swiping the green color, getting in those dark tones with Prussian blue and yellow and some burnt umber. See some of the darker than others. I'm just going to keep tapping my brush outward like that, like I showed you in the other ones, but only now. Kind of hold it on its side a little bit thicker. See, I'm going to go like this. And you can get some light green up there too. Listen, use a little artistic creation with this. It doesn't have to be just like the darn photo. It doesn't have to go all the way to the top like that one is. It can kind of stop here. And I'm adding some light yellowish green out here. Get a little creative. You know, see, just all these little taps, wet on wet. It doesn't have to look just like darn photo. It just helps. So we're going to do this. You don't need to see me do this. Fill this all in. And even the dark area down here was the dark green. Just going to fill in some foliage. Even that tree. And then we'll come back in and we're going to go finish her up with the backpacker. Okay, the backpacker in the photo is like a turquoise. The backpack itself is red. And this turquoise in her, you know, you can have shorts on there. It doesn't have to be exactly like the photograph, but the turquoise is kind of pretty. So we can just do like a little turquoise. It's almost like a triangle. Just fill that shape in. And she doesn't look like she's wearing shorts, but we can put shorts on her. And they could be blue, brown, gray. Maybe do some gray shorts. Or pants. Just put some black pants down if that's easier for you for the backpacker. Black pants. And even for the head, it could be brown or gray. Just going to put around. And I didn't do the arms of the... It's just really tiny. It's so tiny. So it's really just the turquoise with the arm here on the side. Let that dry, and then you can go in and do the red backpack. I'm just going to use cadmium red light and some black. So I'm just going to put a little red. I'm losing it. It doesn't show the straps, but you can just put the little straps. See, like that. And then you can get a little more detailed. If you really want to get that super detailed, cleaning up my brush. I'm still using the Princeton 8 long round, by the way. I'm going to go back in and grab some of that turquoise. Get a little bit darker on that side. Give it some oomph. So it shows that it has some detail here and up here in the backpack. Just do some super detail with the legs. So it could be more of like fallish kind of, but I didn't want to put legs on the person like I was wearing shorts. I decided to do that. And like I said, the shadow could be like that ultramarine blue, right? You barely see this person, so it doesn't really matter. And I put some more of the blue shadow here. You can make it look like the tree is going across the road a little bit. Like some of the greenery in here. Get a little creative with the shadow and the blue on the road. And that's our summer day in the mountain. That's it. Now, I didn't do super tweaks. You can do super tweaks. Another thing is, if for texture of the green, if you want to use like a sea sponge, that really helps. Take a little piece of this off. When you're mixing your greens, here's my yellow. This really helps. See? Put that like texture of that light green, even the dark green in there. Getting my blue, dark green. So taking the Prussian blue with the yellow, with the brown. See? This really helps with the foliage if you're stumped on like getting some texture in there. It's really great. Even down in here and back in here. You know, don't use it everywhere. And that's our mountain hike person. Yep, in the summer day. So we really just break it down, right? This Charles stick trees, just this background. I did like a wash and just add a little of that blue, ultramarine blue with the same yellow ochre or color. You just kind of wash in all this area, and then you can do some, don't have to be in the square. You can come out of the square. I put some little, you can see in the photograph, there's some twigs kind of happening. You can get some dark areas in here, in between the twigs. You know, you want to do that. You don't have to get super technical with all the grass and the foliage. It's up to you. I don't think it's necessary. Just get the feeling of what the day would look like. And that's the most important part. And then you can have some of the grasses kind of coming off, going onto the walkway, the little road, kind of wiggling out here. All that good stuff. And that's that. That's how you break down something like this, like a hiking photo. So I hope you enjoyed it, and take it, like I said, take your time doing something like this. You know, break it into parts, and it becomes much easier and less cumbersome for you. So take care, have a great day, and I'll speak to you soon.